Joined with us, we have the ambassadors today, who are the ones who have the platform to be speaking. As we don't have any theme for what we are going to talk about today, but the ambassadors are going to just say a few words in introduction. These are will be organizing the safe cities, and also when we organize meetups, they will be the lead organizers for these meetups. So in each country, there will be, it may be 2 or 3 lead ambassadors. So if you'd like to know more about us, don't hesitate to reach out to the lead ambassadors. They know more about Unlovely people than I do myself. So don't hesitate to reach out to them. And also, for those who are interested in the ambassador program, we're going to resume it, and guidance will be from the lead ambassadors. So we also do have our lead ambassadors during this call, and also our members and those who have joined the Love Black People movement since it has started, and also these are Pan-African Zoom meetings they've joined us. So lined up today, we're going also to have live lectures from Nana Akua with the healthcare lecture, and also to Taryn Wright through the Pan-African history and organizing class. Yes, to start off our meeting, we're going to have our brother, Derry Anton from Ghana, and he's going to introduce himself and say a few words, and as well, and also start off with the prayer. He's going to start off with the prayer using his indigenous language. Yes, Ambassador Derry Anton, welcome to our Zoom meeting. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself today. Yeah, I'm Derry Anthony, one of the lead ambassadors being selected for Ghana. I want to use this opportunity to thank the leadership for seeing something in me and electing me as one of the lead ambassadors. May God bless you, and we shall do our best to help this family achieve the dreams and aspirations we are all wishing for. I also want to use this opportunity to urge us all that we should work together as a team to help achieve the goals of this family. The leadership cannot do it alone if we don't contribute our quota. It is a privilege. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's a privilege to be a member of this noble family. Sometimes when I think of this family, I always tell my colleagues who are denying or who are feeling reluctant to join this family that they should cast their minds back to the history they always read to us concerning the struggles our grandfathers and our forefathers went through in order to lay down this foundation that is making it possible for us to enjoy the freedom today. If we don't also come together to fight to end this, what do you call it? Racism and xenophobia, our children and our great-grandchildren will also come and continue to suffer like that. But if we come together as a team to help resolve it now, our future children and grandchildren will come, and the way we are enjoying the peace our forefathers laid down for us, they will also come and enjoy it, and they will not have to face any racism and xenophobia. So let's come together and work as a team. Like I said earlier on, the founder and the co-founder and the moderators cannot do it alone if the membership doesn't contribute their quota. And also, I want to say something small concerning the app. Please, any place we visit, if we see that the place is safe for Black people, we shouldn't forget to enter the app or go into the app and recommend the place so that our next person or any Black person who visit the place will know that, oh, if I enter this place, the place is safe for me. And the health tips Nana Akua is always giving us, we should take it serious. It's going to help us as human beings. And also, I appreciate what our mother, Dr. Tyrene, is always teaching us. She always makes us to know much about our history. That is more I have for us this afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was a lead developer, the lead ambassador. His name is Terry Anton, all the way from Ghana. We appreciate you, brother, for joining us today. On next, we're going to have our brother all the way from Guyana, brother Clyde Fowler. Let me unmute you, brother Clyde. Brother Clyde Fowler, are you not driving?
No, I'm parked.
All right, I'm good. Thank you so much. You can introduce yourself to the community.
A pleasant good morning to all. My name is Clyde Fowler. I'm from Guyana, South America. The opportunity is endless, and being a part of this community, it gives us the opportunity to share our knowledge and to learn. And one thing I can say is with the establishment of the Green Book, I know that much more will be done. And having the opportunity to be able to share the I Love Black People app with others and to come against racism and xenophobia, it's an honor and a privilege to be counted as part of this platform and this community. It is indeed a privilege to be able to share amongst my peers here in Guyana and to let them know that we have a voice. We have been, through a lot here in Guyana. Our ancestors came from Ghana and the diaspora, so we are many. We have different culture, but the thing we find is that we can share with the others throughout the diaspora and the world when it comes to racism and xenophobia. We are being looked down upon as Africans, but we have the opportunity to be able to stand and to share, with each other. So I take this opportunity to share with my colleagues and brothers and sisters here in Guyana the I Love Black People app. Many they have their own differences in how they interact with the thing. I'm still learning about the app, so I'm trying to get more acquainted and more affiliated with it so I can able to be more effective in my sharing. So at this time I want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part and to be an ambassador. I would like to encourage others to share, and let us get closer in bringing about the dreams and the vision and the aspiration of the leaders, and to take into consideration everything being taught. I can tell you that I have learned so much. I am also part of a herbalist network here in Guyana. So when we have the teaching, it's so enlightening to have the teaching, to have the notes, to have things so you can share the health, the wellness, because here in Guyana we have obesity, of diabetes on the increase, and listening to our lecturers, and especially with the history, because I'm also part of the Pan-African movement here in Guyana. So having the history being taught and learning, I'm saying, let us continue to fight the good fight. Let us share. I am, because we are Ambassador Clyde Fowler. Thank you.
I am, because thank you so much, brother Ambassador Clyde Fowler, all the way from South America, there in Guyana. We do appreciate you with the effort in making this movement go forward, and we're not stopping, and we are not going to rest, because if we are going to rest, we're gonna rest, so we are not prepared to rest in time from now. So we do appreciate you. And also for those who haven't grabbed their copy of Green Book, grab it, then you have a clear direction on where we are going through digitizing this project of the I Love Black People through the Green Book. So thank you so much. We do appreciate you, brother. On next, we're going to have Brother Elijah Nyabuti. Yes, Brother Elijah, you can go ahead, introduce yourself and also the country you're in, and always feel free to reach out to any of the ambassadors. Even if you're not from their countries, you can always reach out to them. They are always free to assist you. Thank you. You can go ahead, Brother Elijah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, greeting members and ambassadors. My name is Elijah Nyabuti from Kenya. I take this opportunity to thank the ILA Black People Management Team for selecting me as the lead ambassador of ambassadors and members of ILA Black People Movement in Kenya. For me, since I joined the movement in the year 2021, I have learned a lot about our movement, and I'm looking forward that ILA Black People family will bring a positive result in our communities. ILA Black movement is always determined movement helping Black people around the globe from racism and xenophobia. Let's always encourage our brothers and sisters, family members, and friends to join the ILA Black People movement. I would like to ask yourself a question, you as a member or a moderator or ambassador. What if we were all discriminated because of we are Black? How different would our everyday lives be? What will happen if we say enough is enough and we say no to racism and xenophobia? The answer, if we resist any kind of discrimination in our life, our lives will never be the same again. Nothing is impossible, our brothers and sisters. If we come together as Black people to protect ourselves, family, and friends from racist people, that would be a very good thing to do. Today, I want to encourage my brothers and sisters to always download the Safe application app from the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. And when you download this app, remember to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses near you. As I conclude, let me thank our co-founder, Mr. Sinclair Skinner and Mr. Christopher Mapondera for coming up with this movement to champion that Black Lives Matter. Have a wonderful health lecture and history class lecture by Nana Kwastensele and Dr. Tyrene Wright. I am because we are. Back to you, moderator Awad.
Thank you so much, Brother Elijah Nyabuti, all the way from Kenya. We do appreciate you. Also, those who have just joined us, we're going to start our youth care lecture very soon, but we all want to hear words from the ambassadors on what they will be planning and what they have. So on next, we're going to have our Ambassador Augustine Nyakatoma. Yes, Brother Augustine, you can introduce yourself and speak to the community.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear. Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Ambassador Augustine Nyakatoma, based in Mwanza, Tanzania. I would like to say something on what I can explain about it. When I joined this movement since 2021, obviously I was not absent for several times because I was on the studies, so I could not attend several meetings. But now we have finished each and everything. I have finished my studies. Now I'm coming back, and you are continuing to inspire and to talk with the people around here in Mwanza and the other places about I Love Black People movement, which is very important for inspiring Africans and the Black people at large to be safe and to fight against xenophobia and racism wherever they are. We need to make sure that we are based on our duties and responsibilities of fighting against xenophobia, against racism, and anything which harm the life of Black people wherever we are around the world. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for giving me this opportunity to talk a bit. And I believe that together we can around the world, in each country, every country, we need to join together to make sure that we are fighting for our rights, we are fighting for our rights as Africans, as Black people, wherever we are, in order to make sure that we are moving forward towards our success as Black people around the world. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity in this evening. Thank you to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. That was a brother, Augustine Yakatoma. We appreciate you, brother, with all the work, all the effort. I know we are all using our personal data to join these meetings and to learn from these great speakers from the United States about healthcare, the Pan-African history and organizing class. We do appreciate that. And also, we also do more ambassadors who are going also to speak about us. What they're going to say to us is today we do not have a theme. Some of them, they're just speaking their mind. We thank you, all ambassadors. Next, we're going to have Prosper A. Kamara. Can you introduce yourself, brother? Yes, you can.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you?
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Prosper A. Kamara. I'm from Sierra Leone, but I'm presently based in Banjul, the Gambia. Since 2021, I was fortunate to meet with this noble forum. This very movement has made me to know about Black history. Without knowing where you are coming from, you will not know where you're going to. So knowing about Booker T. Washington, also knowing about people that have led this movement, our other elders came in and they still continue to move this system to certain level. I want to believe that it is for us to be able to protect each other. We are Blacks, and we did not become Black by accident. It is God who created us, and I learned that we are the first species that God created as human beings. So, but for now, people are taking us inferior because of our skin color. So we are here to let people know that we are against racism, xenophobia in all shape or form. And me being an ambassador is to help Black people that are coming from other countries, especially the country that I'm living presently here in the Gambia. When they see a person that has accent, speak like a European or an American, they will think that you are a foreigner, even if your skin color is Black. So, but for me, getting this app and trying to locate safe places help me also to meet the people first before I can recommend their business, to know that when they see Black man having accents of a European or wherever, they should know that he is a Black. Our origin is from Africa. So they should treat him as how they treat any other Black brother. Prices that are supposed to be $50 or $100, they should not make it 1,000 because he's having an American accent. So I started sensitizing people on that. So I thank our co-leaders for helping us to study about our history and to be able also to sensitize people around us, to tell them to download this app and to also able to navigate around, to know access, to be able to access safe places. So I'm thanking you, and all those that are in this movement, we should know that we are not in it for money, but we are in it to help each other, because Black lives matter. So we should not allow Blacks to be used as guinea pigs. When they want to test their drugs, they use Black people to test drugs. That's where I got to thank our sister that is teaching us about health and what we should eat and medicines that we should be taking. Nana Kwazazila. So, sister, we thank you very much for this awareness you are making us to know what we should be able to take, because food also is a medicine to our health. So it's something that will become a medicine so that you will live long, live strong. So all this, we are sensitizing people around us and helping them also to join this forum, to be able to study, to be able to learn our history. At times I used to quote, like yesterday, I showed the map to some people and even the logo of I Love Black People, that you should just navigate through the internet, they will see, and try to enter and join the movement and go for lectures, as our able sister is always there to lecture us concerning the Black history. If I could come in, I will stop here for now. Thank you very much once more. I'm ready to sensitize others around me. I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, brother Prosper A. Kamara. We do appreciate you all the way from Glen in Banjul. We appreciate you. We're also going next all the way to Ghana, where our brother Zo also is. After that, we're going to have Brother Bernard Oguta, Brother Ifesnaj. The list is endless. Stay tuned whilst we're waiting for the healthcare lecture and the Pan-African history lecture. We do appreciate all of us for joining and interacting from different parts of the world. Welcome, Brother Zo, so you can introduce yourself and talk to us.
Thank you, my brother. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you're loud and clear.
All right. I want to just take this opportunity and give a little speech. Greetings, my brothers and sisters from Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to thank God for bringing us this far, and also to our co-founder, Honorable Co-founder Christopher Mapunderi, and Honorable Co-founder, a Pan-African technologist and activist, Honorable Sinclair Skinner, all our great tech team behind all this, using Bill Murray and the Green Book API, and most importantly, to you for being part of this August occasion. Thank you all, and God bless you. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our professor who has been taking us through the educative Pan-African lessons, and our Queen Mother, that's our Professor Dr. Terry Wright, and then our Queen Mother, Nana Ekuya Zinzili, for her educative healthcare lessons he has been taking us through. We thank you all. I'm with much joy to be called upon to deliver this speech today. I quite remember when I joined the I Love Black People in 2020 as a member, and eventually opt for an ambassador post, through which I've been climbing the ladder and hoping to do much with the lead ambassador. Through dedication and need for measures to curb the rampant racism and xenophobia, I work hard to proceed the I Love Black People love. Brothers and sisters, protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia has never been an easy one, not to talk about doing it through technology. The I Love Black People app on Google Play Store and iOS Apple Store. I became a moderator and witnessed the launch of the global app, I Love Black People Safe Places app. And you can get it, or you can download it from Google Play Store and then Apple Store. In the quest to creating over 1 million members, ambassadors, Black friendly and Black Black-owned businesses to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia in at least 236 major cities. The Allow Black People Safe Places app was launched. The app, Allow Black People Safe Places, is a noble app of a kind that is doing great in protecting Black people from humiliations of racism and xenophobia in the communities. Do you know or have you heard of the Negro Motorist Green Book, first published in the 1936? This book stopped publication after 1966, that's about 30 years ago. Hence, the launch of a safe, secure, and dignifying use and movement of any place around the globe with our almost a year launch app, Allow Black People Safe Places app, was duly in place. This app has 8 essential categories displayed above in the order of accommodation, beauty, education, and childcare, finance, food, health, legal, and transportation, which is helping in searching and making recommendations. The Allow Black People Safe Places app has received a lot of awesome reviews over the past months. Users have shown their great pleasure and satisfaction in using the app. Most of them affirmed how helpful it has been in protecting Black people from humiliations of racism and xenophobia. They also confess the app actually is an eye-opener to Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses that they do not even know are close by them or in their area. The app has really helped in connecting Black people to businesses and places around the world that are safer, secure, and void of any form of humiliations, racism, and xenophobia. Indeed, I Love Black People movement and I Love Black People Safe Places app is creating a virtual, sustainable, sovereign, Pan-African mutual aid movement by making racism and xenophobia obsolete in our community. I therefore encourage you, yes, you, to join the good cause. If you haven't by if you haven't yet downloaded the app, you should do that and then go ahead and invite your friends, family, and loved ones to download and use the app and further make recommendations of other safe places and businesses. Beloved, this movement is not a joke. So I will urge each and every member to hold on to our rules and regulations and just follow it so that you don't get expelled or terminated from the various groups. We are always spreading the love. I am because we are. I love Black people. Thank you.
I am because you are. Thank you so much, Ambassador Zoousu Agbe, all the way from Ghana. We do appreciate you. We're going on next to have our brother Bernard Oguta. Welcome, Ambassador. How are you? You can introduce yourself and talk to us.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my dear brothers and sisters across the world. My name is Bernard Oguta from Kenya, one of the ambassadors of from Kenya for the Arab Black people all over the world. What I can say briefly, for me, I joined the movement back in 2019. It was a frontiering it was a frontiering push. Nobody pushed me to join the movement. It is me who went through the social media, which is Facebook. I liked the page of Arab the Black People movement. I went through the write-up. Then afterwards, the page. I requested to join the movement, and after 2-3 days, I was given an invite, and I joined the movement. What I can tell you, my brothers and sisters across the world, we, the Black people, initially we were used strongly, but it's now our time. Take time grab ourselves, teach and advise ourselves across the world because we're all over. We come united and as a movement, we'll be strong. Lastly, I don't want to talk much because we're running out of time. What I would recommend to our movement, since initially we had our Pan-Africanists, it's my request that if it would be allowed, we call ourselves, because our forefathers are like Cave, Boys, the Kuruma, Sylvester, they were the first Pan-Africanists. We as the young, or the grandchildren of our forefathers, why can't we call the movement, okay, why can't we call ourselves Neo-Pan-Africanists? That is what I can bring forward to the management, and I thank the leadership, the top leadership of the movement for giving me this chance to be one of the leader ambassadors from Kenya. I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you so much. That was Brother Bernard Oguta, all the way from Kenya. We thank you so much, brother. On next, we're going to have the remaining ambassadors to speak. Then we have in the youth lecture with Nana Akua, live youth lecture, and the live Pan-African history with the Dr. Tyrone Wright is on standby as well. We do appreciate each and every one of your efforts in joining us, and also in helping us in protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia. All this you're doing through the love for Black people and the love for us not to be influenced by the white supremacist ideology, and we appreciate that. On next, we're going to have our brother all the way from Nigeria, our brother Ifesnach Uroko is also a lead ambassador. Yes, our brother Ifesnach, welcome.
Thank you very much, Award. How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my brothers and sisters all over the world. I am the lead ambassador from Nigeria. My name is Ifesnach Uroko. Let me proceeding on the existing protocols and starting from where my brother Zoe stopped. I think let me elaborate a little about the I Love People Black movement. I Love Black movement is a platform that was founded under the watch of Skinner Sinclair and Christopher Mapandora, who are both alumni of Howard University. And this organization is an organization that have been in existence because the Green Book, the Global Green Book that they just launched, it's a book that was organized by a guy called Victor Green in 1936, as my brother said, and was printed in 1937. This book, the guy is a postal service, according to the information I have. So that gave him a privilege of identifying safe places, you know, the work of postal service people. So he organized this list of safe Black friendly places, then printed it in 1937. And ever since then, they have been printing that book every year until 1966, after the Civil Rights Act was put into law. That is what made him to stop that printing. Then, moving forward, after so many occurrences of the same racism and xenophobia, my brother Skinner Sinclair and Christopher decided to come up with a technological means of, you know, a scalable means of putting this book globally. And this is when they founded it in the form of a I Love Black People movement. You see? So it is a guide, a guidance book for the Black people that accommodates Black-friendly places through recommendations by the users. So this book have been designed to try to cope or to prevent racism and xenophobia. So moving forward, these guys have been able, and they are still trying to organize a global family, which they intend to get up to millions, you see? So it is a great work that they are doing in trying to make sure that the lives of Black people are protected all over the world. And this is why somebody like me is on board. It is a volunteer movement. I'm not here for money. I'm here to make my own contributions. So my little comment I want to make about the program is that, you know, when you have a crowd following you, you need to engage them. And this class we are doing is part of the engagement. Even though I will suggest that, you see, judging from where we are now, African continent, it's very hard for us to afford data because the exploitation they exploit us here through the medias we use, the mediums we use, is outrageous. So somebody coming online to spend the first 30 minutes without getting interesting content that, you know, engages the person and keeps the person online. My brothers and sisters, I think and I believe the person will likely, you know, not come back the next time. So this is just my personal contribution so that we'll try and make the first 30 minutes interesting. Dr. Wright and Nana Akwadi are doing a great job. But for people to stay up to 30 minutes to get to them, I think we have to keep them engaged. So then again, I think this is my own contribution on how to move, on how to keep, on how to maintain the crowd, you know, on how to keep people engaged. Then I want to make comments on how we as Black people are being treated. We are not treated because of our Black skin, because of our Black color. They are not, the racism and xenophobia is not because of our Black skin. It is because of the image we are carrying. This image we are carrying is image that have racism and xenophobia enshrined on it. The identity Africa have is a negative image. And anywhere we are, this image is what we present ourselves to be. And this is why people react in form of racism and all that. So for us to stop this, what we need to do as Black race is to redefine ourselves. We have to redefine our image. The whole definition we have as a people is a definition given to us by our enemies. These guys didn't come to help us grow. They came to collect what we had. So they gave us definition. And ever since then, we have been carrying this badge of negativity, this badge of inferior human being, this badge of inability to think. These are not true. These are not realities. These are just identity that have been put on us by our enemies. And for us, for people to respect us, we have to identify ourselves. If we identify ourselves and redefine ourselves in a positive view, people will automatically start to respect us. These guys that claim whatever they claim, white supremacy or whatever they claim, they are not coming to tell us that they are supreme human beings than us. It's just the things they do, the image they have projected, the way people see them. Look at America today. If you come to this side of the world, the media we're watching about America is that America is heaven. But that is not the reality on ground. And this is the image they are painting on our subconsciousness. And this is the same image, is the image we should be painting to them. So, I thank the founders and I thank the tutors, those that are teaching us, for bringing out their time and all that. It is not an easy job. And I believe, and as we are here, I believe that just as this platform has been evolving, I believe that it will evolve. It will evolve to a platform that will do greater good for the people of Black people. I Love Black People is a great movement, and we will put in our best to make sure that the world is a better place for the Black people. Let me stop here. Thank you very much. I remain blessed. I am because you are.
I am because you are. And that was yeah, we do appreciate you. So we're going to have anyone who's in the effort to speak, kindly raise your hand as we conclude this segment. Yes, Brother Modi.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we
Hello,
can hear you. Yes, we can
Hello.
hear you. Can you introduce?
Can you hear me very well?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. It's Pride Modi from Masingo. Lovely people, Zimbabwe. The people is global seeking to eradicate xenophobia and racism after focuses on 8 essential categories. It is youth, education, food, etc., etc. I've made people intervene. I'm sure I've made intervene. I understand that there was some form of racial discrimination just because of communities. I think this needs to be looked at in Zimbabwe, particularly in the border areas where there are.
Yes, Brother Modi, you're breaking up. I think we just lost Brother Modi due to network issues. Yes, I think we lost him. Again, let's have, I can see Brother James, you raised your hand. If there's anyone again who didn't have an opportunity to speak, kindly show us by raising your hand. Yes, Brother James, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks to everyone, and I should say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. Yes, I am Osuna James from Uganda, and I thank you all for your efforts in this movement. And in fact, this is where we need to be starting from. And I should say this is, it has been long due. So back to the point, well, Africa, we kind of see ourselves as inferior people, even before whites or Europeans and Arabs and what have you see us as inferior. First and foremost, there's something that we lost in the first place. We are, but for as long as we continue to show Africans that we are not one people, we shall not be able to fight this fight. What am I saying? Today, up to now, the Europeans came and taught us how to read and write. As for now, I should tell you as Africa, we have no secret. Why? We are speaking a foreign language. That all that we can speak, we cannot hide anything. Today I go to China. I mean, if a Chinese want to speak development with the fellow Chinese, they would resort back to their language, Chinese, and I would not be knowing anything. How about we Africans? Do we think at any point in a moment we need to have one language that unites us? And therefore it is that very language that will be the basis of our development towards fighting for ourselves. Two, we Africans, right from childhood, we are taught to segregate. And this is the hard truth that we always don't want to stereotype. We never want to stereotype that. But it is the hard truth that we have got to heck with. Because you'll find a child born in a family segregating from the other family. It trickles down to neighbor, it trickles down to tribalism, it goes to xenophobia, and then to racism. And then when it reaches racism is when we tend to have too much hullabaloo. We need to first come back on the drawing board and identify who we are. In fact, we only like to cry fouls than to be ourselves. Today, we are seeing much of our people flocking the Arab countries and suffering. We only cry about their sufferings there. But today, we see governments in Africa killing, their people, their own people. They are more than barbaric. They are killing their own people. And then it is only when the other Arab now tortures the other one, then that's when we get up and say, these people are bad. They are racists. So do we have racist governments also? Do we have racist parastatals also? Can we also, in the same spirit, get up to talk about that? We have these organizations that have done us more harm than good. For example, the UN. Up to date, I have not seen, yes, their presence is there, but I'm not seeing their impact. We continue to see people being tortured. A case in point, we have a gentleman who has just come out from prison here in Uganda. He was tortured by government authorities using a hot iron box. Imagine putting a hot iron box on your nipples to cause wounds to interrogate you just because you're opposing the government. So how should we talk about that? You kind of lose words to talk about such. So sometimes before we cry racism, we cry xenophobia, I say we need to define ourselves and speak to the truth. I would love this to continue, and I should say that, in fact, it has started online, and I know probably you started earlier than I have joined, but I would love to see such of the same trickling down to people who cannot afford to be in this, so that we have the presence everywhere. We fight for life, not only in the diaspora, but also back home, because it's the same hell. Because who face racism, even those who are still in Africa face the same. So we need to come out to help them speak one voice and to fight this agenda.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Osuna James. Welcome to the Love Black People. We appreciate you joining us today. And also, always know that we do have open discussions 30 minutes when you start the call. So make sure that next Saturday you join earlier when we're going to have an interesting topic to talk about. We'll be attending the speakers and also those who will be raising their hands through the the participants board. We appreciate you. On next, we're going to have a healthcare lecture with Nana Akua. Hope she will go 15 minutes extra. I hope Yvonne, you have organized that as well. Welcome Nana Akua to the Pan-African History Lecture, and make sure that you purchase the green book, which Nana Akua is one of the authors, and enjoy the healthcare lecture in the green book as well. And if you want to reach out, shout out from Nana Akua, kindly switch on your camera. Nana Akua likes to teach lovely smiling black faces all over the world. Welcome Nana Akua to the healthcare lecture. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. I was saying you have to unmute me. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is always a pleasure. Yes, I love to see beautiful Black faces. So Clyde and Etha Sanache, and I see a face, but it says connecting, so it's not telling me the name yet. But thank you for having your camera on, striped shirt. It's not connecting. I don't see the name yet. And Kamara, I don't know if that's Joe, Derry. The other name's still connecting. Okay, well, when it pops up, oh, Daniel. Okay, I see you now. All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all so much. But I have some disappointing news award. I do not have until 11:30. Y'all have to check with me first on that. So you'll have to come up with something else in these 15 minutes. So I can go until 11:15. So I don't know if perhaps Dr. Wright is not available at her usual time. Sometimes I don't have anything to do after, sometimes I do. So today is one of those days. Thank you for joining us today. So let me just review why we are here and what the point of this healthcare lecture is. I'm a holistic practitioner, as you know, if you've joined us before. And so my goal is always to empower our people so that we basically create a self-love for ourselves and our people. And as a healer or a healthcare person, one of the best ways I do that is to take good care of yourself and to focus on our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health, our emotional well-being, so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. And because there is racism, and because there is xenophobia, and all of the hatred and all the negative forces in the world, we have to do that. That is our self-protection. That is our radical movement, right? That we can do every day, void of anyone else, void of any other movements, social actions, or anything external. We can always choose ourselves. I always say, I'm the star player, right? I'm the MVP, right? Now, I was an athlete growing up, so I mean, that into to look at it as if we are playing a sport, and as if we understand that terminology, but we have to be the star player, right? And we always have to look at ourselves. We always have to focus on us. And that's not necessarily a good message for somebody who's already selfish, but for the person that is selfless and is always giving to others, this is a reminder that we all have to give. Of course, the selfish person already knows that. The narcissist, the person that thinks it's all about them, this is not the message they need. Hopefully they can find some balance with that. But for those of us who are always to others and focusing on others and focus on the outer, encouraging you to always focus on the inner. And then it radiates to others. That is what allows someone like me to carry on and do things that uplift the community, that uplift Black people, that uplift the race. And you can't do that. It's like trying to be in a relationship with another person. You can't love that other person if you don't have that love for yourself. This is the same concept. You have to love yourself and who you are, and the good and the bad, right? Before you can spread that out and encourage other Black people to love themselves and to stand up for ourselves and that sort of thing. So it's an inside job that then radiates and permeates, right, outward to all of our people. So we always are talking about very specific things, what herbs to use for this, what essential oil is good for that. But I always try to bring it back around as to why we do that. And so I want all of us to be healers for our families, for our communities, and for the world. So if it is the focus on, you have a cold, this is, boil some ginger and, some echinacea and some elderberries. Or if it is, you're spiritually imbalanced and you're losing faith, then use, and it can still be herbs, because we know that herbs can still be, right, spiritually healing, right? So it may be drinking rosemary tea to get some mental clarity and to focus and be able to meditate and to pray more directly and more specifically, right? And get back into balance with spirit. Using the crystals, you all know that I love crystals. It may be using a clear quartz crystal to clear negative energy that may be around you, whether it's from the job or whether it's from the community, could be within your household. But there's so many ways we know and focus on our well-being. It could be that we have to balance ourselves emotionally. Sometimes we are overcome with certain emotions. Some of it because of trauma, some of it because of maybe our own imbalanced thoughts. Sometimes our outlook, perspective is everything, right? Sometimes we simply need those flower essences that I've talked about to just change our perspective, to give us a different look. And so even if you're not visually impaired, right, and you don't need glasses, so this is metaphorically speaking, right? But sometimes we have to get new glasses, right? We have to have a new view or vision about something, a new outlook on it, a new perspective. And so sometimes instead of making ourselves the victims or saying, woe is me, we may have to say, okay, what was my role in that? How can I empower myself? How can I change the narrative? Oh, this person did me wrong, or they left me, whatever. What is your role? And then you empower yourself by saying, well, this is how I've recovered. This is how I will recover. This is how I can pick up from that bad situation, and whatever was intended for bad, I'm turning into good. But whatever area it may be, whatever stories you have to tell, and it takes a certain level of vulnerability, right, to open up and to share what you may have experienced. But know that there are other people that are going through the same things. And so whatever your health story is in whatever area, if it was a physical ailment, if it was a spiritual deficit, if it was some emotional imbalance, you may be able to heal your people, your family, through sharing how you overcame. What of this information that I shared did you utilize and that you put in place, and you were able to alter or change that situation? That can be very healing and very empowering. The Global Green Book was mentioned earlier. This is my second year being involved with the book. I'm very proud of the book that is available now. And in that, a lot of the information that we cover here is included, but even some additional information that's not as easy to speak about in this setting, but easy to have in front of you in written form, whether it's lists or whether it's certain explanations, whether it's signs or symptoms of certain things. even if we're not talking strictly holistic, you know, knowing the signs of a stroke. I was watching a TikTok the other day, and there was a lady who, I don't know, she apparently assisted the lady, right? And I don't know how well she assisted the lady while she was filming it, but she apparently assisted this lady who was clearly having a stroke, right? The lady had apparently thrown up or vomited. Her speech was slurred. She was trying to ask the lady her code for her phone, and you know, her speech clearly was slurred. And there were just these signs that was clearly signs of a stroke. I can't, of course, say she was having a stroke, but there are just certain signs and symptoms of certain conditions. We should all be armed with that information, right? And so that you get right on assisting, you know, and I know the world these days is more like, let me film everything. But I hope that she more so paid attention to what she did see and what she was observing and got the help. And I don't know, I probably would have rendered more assistance to trying to assist the person rather than narrating this video. But it just reminded me that we were on the right track in terms of giving this information in the book, because and there are countless stories. Me as a healer, I've come across many stories, you know, and about the same thing, you know, someone that was in a relationship with someone and they were clearly having signs of a stroke, and she's telling him, oh, it's fine, just sleep it off, you know, go to sleep, you'll be fine, you're over exaggerating, you're being extra. And this man actually had a stroke and slept on it. So, you know, thank God, right, that babies and fools are protected. So I don't know, the girlfriend was the fool, I guess, because she really gave him wrong information and advice. She rendered no assistance with him. But fortunately, he was saved and, you know, saved throughout the night and was able to get up the next day still feeling bad, and went to the doctor to be informed that he indeed had a stroke. So it's good that we all have this information and that we all know signs and symptoms to look for when someone may be having a stroke or may be having a heart attack or may have experienced some kind of poisoning, food poisoning or otherwise, sun poisoning, any, you know, types of poisonings, things that you need immediate attention for. So there are different things that you will find in the book that will be along the lines of what you hear here, but in addition to that, you'll find other life-saving information that I think we all should have that information so that we can help perhaps save lives or at least increase the quality of lives. So definitely, I encourage you to purchase the book, spread the word about the book. I've mentioned before, we are recruiting ambassadors here in the States. So there will be a meeting date. I actually have the date, but I left the paper in my other room, so I won't get up to get that. But we'll have a series or a number of virtual meetups to where we talk about putting, you know, power to the words of fighting racism. And that the integral part of that is identifying safe spaces, because we can't change people's minds, right? But we can change where we go and shop or where we go and get care and where we go to receive services, and identify those places that are already Black owned, that are already Black friendly. That's how we change the narrative, not hoping and praying and wishing that people change how they view about us and how they treat us, but identifying who already treats us with respect and dignity. So we are full force with that. So again, if you have people, and I also want to say to Award, I don't know if Yvonne is on, I sent a message that there was someone who messaged me that's on the continent that's interested in being an ambassador. If you all can address that, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I don't know if that person is on. If so, you can send me a quick reminder, and before I get off, I'll check to make sure I forward that to them. But this is why we do what we do. There's so many components, so many aspects to it. This is just one of them. And because my time was short today, and I do have somewhere else to go, I just wanted to drive that point in, that we are the best loving ourselves is the best way that we can fight this fight. And that starts with taking care of yourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally, and really utilizing the information that you're learning here. Even if it's unfamiliar, even if some of the herbs and some of the remedies that we mentioned are not available, but having that information is empowering. So thank you all for joining us. We will get back into the flow of information next week. And I thank you as always for joining, and I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so much, Nana Akua, for highlighting all the aspects which you have highlighted. And also for those who want to join us, you can drop your phone numbers in the chat room, or make sure that I'll add you to the coming Pan-African History class. And also through the healthcare lecture, we'll be receiving a return PDF from Nana Akua. And also, if you want to read the materials, you can reach out to nanakua1@gmail.com. I just did write it right now in the chat section.
And please put the link for the book in the chat over what someone's inquiring about the book. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And also the link to purchase the book through Amazon, we're also going to put it in the chat room. And also someone asked what other platform can we purchase the book? We're going to discuss about that and make sure that it's available in other platforms as well. Thank you. On next, we're going to have the Pan-African History on Organizing class with Dr. Tyreen Wright. So are you all ready for the Pan-African History class? Let's welcome Dr. Tyreen Wright to the Pan-African History class. Yes, welcome, Dr. Tyreen Wright.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So I'm going to pick up where we left off. Your readings for last week were the African exclusion measure, which is a very interesting and important case. I think that people should know about. This information should generally be common knowledge in terms of an example of Pan-Africanism in the area of legislation and policy. So you had that chapter from Booker T. Washington, the book to read. It's short in comparison to some of the other chapters in that particular book, but you had that chapter, and it's a pretty short and succinct case that laid out a situation that happened at the turn of the century, or a little shortly after the turn of the century. It begins at 1914. So a little bit over 100 years ago, this case becomes an issue. I'm trying to see if you can see me well. So I'm going to discuss the details of that for those of you who read it and those of you who have yet to read it and need to catch up. So that case is a scenario where U.S. legislators, namely a senator from Missouri named James Reed, proposes to exclude anyone of the Black or African race from the United States forever. And it wasn't just to exclude anyone of the Black or African race from the United States forever. It would exclude them based on being criminal and undesirable. And this is all based on genealogy, okay? So if you appear to be Black or you were coming from the African continent, this measure would exclude you. And I want to be very specific about what it was, because there's conversations about this now that people do know something about it. It was an amendment to the larger immigration bill of 1915. And so it was in the immigration bill as an amendment to the overall arching bill. And once it was proposed, there were many other exclusionary measures that were proposed and shot down. But once James Reed settles on the exclusion of African and Black people and would put them in the same category as undesirables and criminals attempting to enter the country. It was quickly passed without any argument, without any contest, without any debate. And that's unusual in general in US legislative history. There's usually some discourse, but not on that issue. What provoked this particular piece of legislation was the fact that the Panama Canal had just been completed. The Panama Canal was an engineering project in Panama in particular, which would have cut through the landmass from the Gulf and the Caribbean Sea through to the Pacific Ocean on the other side and open up the waterways so you can bring things from the Atlantic into the Gulf and the Caribbean Sea and through this canal on into the Pacific Ocean and have access to the eastern part of, or the East, right? Asia. And so many nations had tried it. France had tried it and failed to produce a project that could open up the waterways. But the United States would actually do it and succeed under Theodore Roosevelt. That being said, once it was completed, this measure is proposed. Why? Because the laborers on the Panama Canal were the African and Black populations of the Caribbean, Central, and South America. And so this was an effective way to say, thank you for your labor on this American project. We have completed it. And no thank you on the question of immigration, meaning they were concerned, they being America, American politicians and legislators, of course, white American politicians and legislators, were concerned that the laborers on the Panama Canal would now think that this would open the door to a possibility of immigrating to the United States. After all, they had been paid in US wages, and consequently, they would have possibly resources and a standard of living that they did not particularly have prior to them working and being able to work on the Panama Canal, okay? So this in effect would lock them out at the time, African people coming from the Caribbean, coming from Central America, coming from South America, many of which did not even identify as Black, and certainly did not identify as African. This is still a point of contention today for people in South America in particular, right? They're just coming to the understanding of being Black or identifying as Black, and still yet to have, their first Black Power movement of sorts. That said, the US government doesn't care about that. They classify you as they see fit, and anyone who appeared to be Black and was obviously phenotypically of the African persuasion would have been denied and put in the same category as undesirables and criminals attempting to enter the country. So it was none other than Booker T. Washington who watched the legislative record, the congressional record, and watched what they were doing and watched what bills were coming before the Senate and the House of Representatives, who saw this measure emerge and quickly organized in numerous ways to challenge and defeat it and kill it in the House. So in the United States, a piece of legislation can be proposed in the Senate and pass and then go to the House of Representatives. That being said, it had passed in the Senate, the body in which it originated in, and it was on its way to the Congress. Washington, Booker T. Washington, who is not in the context of American history or any history seen as a Pan-Africanist, not publicly, But these are the things that we learn from history, because privately, behind closed doors, he is certainly a very seasoned um, critic of U.S. Politicians and policies, because he's been the advisor to U.S. presidents, and he is poised to act on behalf of African people internationally, who this would impact. This would not in any way impact African people who were already in the United States, because there would be no way to remove them under this piece of legislation. That being said, it would change the demographic or the makeup, cultural and ethnic makeup of the Black communities, the existing Black communities within the United States. So let me just give you a little bit more of an example. You read Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey would enter the United States 1 year and 2 months after this measure was defeated in January of 1915. And that's significant because Jamaica is one of the island nations that is distinctively Black to this day. African people who were brought there in the transatlantic slave trade. This island nation is noted in the discourse and debate on the floor of the House around this measure, okay? And they are identified as Black and African, right? And I'm not saying that Jamaicans don't know this. Jamaicans know that they're Black, and many of them identify with Africa. But if you were to go and talk about, Colombia, which Panama was connected to, Panama was previously a part of Colombia, and the U.S. fueled the rebellion there in order to, be able to have the opportunity to cut through the landmass and produce the Panama Canal. Many Colombians will tell you they're mestizo or they're, Indio, something other than Black, but they can look just like any of us. So this idea of race and culture, is very interesting, or ethnicity is very interesting. That being said, Marcus Garvey would be one of the beneficiaries almost immediately of the defeat of this measure. Now, notice I'm not telling you how the measure was defeated, because if you read the chapter, as you should have, or if you haven't read it, I'm not going to ruin it, but he wages at least a three-pronged attack on this particular piece of US legislation. And you can see his posture. He is working on behalf of African people internationally. He is aware they're coming to the United States for work. After all, of course, this is a situation that the setting is around a work situation where African people and Black people from the Caribbean, Central, South America have worked on the Panama Canal. And they're saying, thank you for your efforts and your work and your labor, but no, we do not want you to be an inhabitant of the United States. So he's aware that the African populations and the Black populations of the world are interested in coming to the United States for work, are interested in coming to the United States for school, and so on and so forth. He is not opposed to that. And this is something that, when we get into our conversations later on about ethnic and national, nationality, we have issues, right, on the African continent and even in the United States around ethnic differences amongst Black people, right? Between Africans from the Caribbean and Africans from the United States, Africans from the continent. If you're on the internet, you see these conversations. Well, this is a man who is a survivor of the institution of slavery, lived during the period of emancipation, and so became free at around as an adolescent around the age of 8 or 9 or 10, because we don't know his exact age, but had identified with the African peoples of the world. So it's challenging the very government he is supposedly is so much aligned with, because if you know anything about Booker T. Washington in the US domestic context, he is pretty much identified as being or labeled as being accommodationist. He was the advisor to 2 American presidents, all of that. But in this instance, you see him aligned with the interests of African people internationally against the US government. He challenges this measure in the press. So he blasts them in the press through the Black press, which he has significant control of. He organizes behind the scenes with the use of his secret network called the Tuskegee Machine, which essentially was a group of people who did power brokering behind the scenes to work in the interest of African people, but usually as directed by Booker T. Washington. And there's probably much criticism one could wage against the Tuskegee Machine one way or the other, but it is an organ or a tool that Washington has at his disposal. And as a result, he sends them to Washington, D.C. to challenge directly individual politicians that they believe are going to vote in favor of this piece of racist legislation. So his posture is very important, because when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we're talking about not just getting together with other African and Black people, but producing something and working in concert to address our condition, right? And there's no limit to the kind of conversation we can have around how we suffer as a result of policy, racist legislation. And that usually is just a production of racist politicians, right? And we suffer from this in the neo-colonial context on the African continent, but we certainly have a neo-colonial setting in the United States where you can have people who are Black, identifiably Black, identifiably African, and still work against the best interest of Black and African people. So you see Washington do the opposite of this. He is behind the scenes and in the public realm, challenging this piece of legislation. His words make it to the floor of the House of Representatives during a ferocious debate that took place between January 1st and January 7th of 1915. And I won't give you any details because I want you to read it or go back. I give you just enough in the chapter to understand that there were people on both sides and that his words were significant in challenging this measure. Ultimately, it is defeated. And it is a big victory because it is the very reason why we can talk about a Marcus Garvey, as I stated, who would immigrate to the United States just 1 year and 2 months after this measure was defeated. It is the very reason why Nkrumah, our beloved Nkrumah, can come to the United States and study. One of the things I skipped over is that, Washington is also seeking, he has a personal interest aside from identifying with the African world internationally. He has a personal interest in that since 1893, there had always been a steady flow of students from the African continent, specifically Liberia, but other places. And Tuskegee is a hub for African people coming from the Caribbean, Central, South America to Tuskegee to study. And Tuskegee, for those of you who are not, clued in on the dynamics between Washington and Tuskegee is the first principal of the institution called Tuskegee Institute, later university. So it becomes a hub for students coming to study and from around the African and Black world. And he seeks to maintain and sustain that. And he knows that this particular piece of legislation would destroy that. So read the case, but Marcus Garvey would not have come Nkrumah could not have come to study. And he does end up going to a Black institution, Lincoln, later on, or initially, and then goes on to other institutions in the United States. You guys who love Obama would not be in existence because his father, many years later, would not be able to come from Kenya. On and on and on, we can talk about the number of African people who would come to the United States post the defeat of this particular racist piece of legislation and its defeat. And so it would change and impact. Oh, I have to say, our shining prince, Malcolm X, whose mother is from the Caribbean, would not have been allowed into the United States. And his father is from the Midwest. But, you know, he would not have been in existence had this legislation not been defeated. And what do we have? That is what we have in our hand, meaning we ensured, Washington would ensure the movement of African people from other places in the world into the United States, and yes, to their benefit. Because I'm gonna tell you something, we have an issue where we don't want each other to benefit from what we do. We want to make it very exclusive. And I don't know if that's the mark of having been enslaved and colonized in various places, but we want to be very exclusive sometimes about the fruits of certain struggles. And the reality is that Washington had none of those issues or hangups. Otherwise, he would not have been inclined to challenge this measure. Just to drive home the importance of being ideologically developed and ready and poised to act when the moment arises, is, well, I want to emphasize that because this particular measure is proposed on December 31st of 1914 and passes in the Senate. The very next week, it goes to the House of Representatives. In less than a week, Washington bombards the Black press to get the word out to the general public, Black people in particular, to oppose this measure. But he is working behind the scenes because he does have something called unconstituted, or even you could say constituted power, in the sense that he has a body of people, agents, actors, and I don't mean actors in the movie sense, agents of our people that are willing to go to Washington, go into House of Representatives, force a polling of the Congress, directly challenge US politicians face to face, hold it up so that they can identify the people who are in support of this racist piece of legislation and essentially destroy it. That is something that, if that happened now, we are not ideologically developed enough to do that with the swiftness and accuracy that he did in that 1 week in the beginning of 1915. Okay, let me say it together again. Most of us don't got our minds right. So we would not be able to say, you know what? He's talking about me. He's talking about us just outside of the United States. Most of us would get caught up with, well, they shouldn't be able to immigrate and benefit, or they shouldn't be able to, you understand? So their American citizenship probably would take primacy for them. And they would want some exclusive, as I said in the past to some people, be careful how you protect American citizenship and American identity, because it is something that African people in the United States have always been denied, even when legally they have had American citizenship. They have been denied the full rights and range of and benefits of that citizenship. So what are you protecting exactly? So that being said, he had already gone through, and I don't share the book here in the context of this course, so there actually is a book called Booker T. Washington in Africa that I wrote several years ago now. and it gives you sort of like what leads up to this. But you all have one chapter on Pan-Africanism, which we covered at the beginning of the course, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. And that book covers some of his ideological development, why he loves Africa, African people, all of that. And so that sort of contributed to his ideation, and he picks up tools and understanding along the way, which allow him to act with precision in this moment, and that's important, to be able to do what you need to do when it's most important to do it. And of course, something I learned from Tuskegee, because I am a Tuskegee alumni myself, is that, you always need to know what you're doing and who you're doing it for. And he knew precisely who he was doing it for. He was doing it for the African population of the world, not just those in the Caribbean or Central or South America, but for the African continent and for those unborn and yet to come. He essentially took a position against the United States government and said, you will not close the doors to the African population. And this is one of the notable cases that allow us to see how genealogy is criminalized, Blackness is criminalized, and African culture is criminalized on a legislative level, okay, or in power. So be Black would allow the State Department to classify that person as an undesirable and a criminal attempting to enter the country. I'm gonna leave it there about the case. You can ask me some questions. But it's, if you did the readings, you see I give you Marcus Garvey as well in this past week. And Marcus Garvey, as you all know, would enter the United States, like I said, a year and 2 months after this measure was defeated. He is coming to visit no other place than Tuskegee Institute at the time. And he's there because he wants to see the sustainable model that Tuskegee is for African people, that many people had come to study during this period in history. Washington by this time is dead. He dies literally the same year as the defeat of this measure. So this measure is defeated in the Congress in January of 1915, and Booker T. Washington would die in November of 1915, right? So he would not even see the end of the year. But it was a great contribution to us in the sense that we could take as a model that when the British, when the UK proposes racist legislation to lock out African people and immigrants and migrants into their country, what is the posture? What is the method? For the same for France, for the same for other nations that attempt to enact racist policies to lock out African populations and stop them from having the freedom to move around the earth as everyone else has. So I think I'll stop there. I'll let you ask some questions. I think I'm right at the 11:45, if my watch is right. I think I'm right at 11:45. And this week coming up, we'll start to talk about a couple of other proponents on the continent of Africa. I'm going to share a film, which I typically share, which is Cuba, an African Odyssey, about the many liberation struggles on the African continent, and Cuba's unwavering support for African liberation and in various forms, okay? And we'll get into the ideologies of people like Amilcar Cabral, Thomas Sankara. Of course, I'll be going more in depth with Nkrumah in terms of Pan-Africanist thought, and we will be returning to the issue of bodies that come about as a result of all this movement on the continent. This course seeks to hold or at least share African liberation struggles as the highest expression of Pan-Africanism, because it wasn't just about individual African nations having independence, as Nkrumah highlighted, but it was about having a unified Africa. And that doesn't mean a United States of Africa, but that means an Africa united in the best interest of African people, so that African people benefit the most from what Africa has to offer, as opposed to the least. So that's where we're going with the materials. And I'm going to go to questions really quickly. Hold on a second. Okay. I don't know what I did. Okay. I don't know what I just did, but oh, okay. Okay, here, I'm back. Okay, so I'm looking at the comments. Let's see. All right, so it doesn't seem like a lot of people have much to say. Let's see. That's why U.S. law enforcement agency hates Africans. The hatred for African people is historical in the United States. Of course, I mean, European nations hate African people, because what many don't understand is that the institution of slavery was never meant to end, and that's a whole nother conversation. Can you imagine? You have a economic structure called slavery for 250 years. In the United States, slavery lasted as under the nation for 250 years, but it existed prior to the founding of the United States, meaning prior to 1776, enslavement in the United States existed. It constitutes itself as an institution adopted by many states as early as the 1619 Project, 1600s. We have Anthony Johnson in Virginia, who survives indentured servitude and it comes to own land, and they realize like, oh, no, that wasn't part of the plan, right? For these people to survive indentured servitude. And so then you see state by state proposing legislation to produce a system called enslavement that could perpetually enslave Black people, right? So no, it was never meant to end. And in the places where colonialism existed, that was never meant to end. What probably ended colonialism, aside from the very vigilant efforts of African people throughout the world to end it, was the fact that World War II weakened Europeans and Europe in general. And so right afterwards, we are able to snatch our nations and our freedom on the African continent. And so no, the systems that existed and were in place, the United States is not unique in any way. It's just the blue flame in the present situation, meaning one of the hottest points in the struggle against white supremacy and culture, right? Where, it's an intense space. Yeah, I agree, Peter. I'm just gonna call you Peter because I don't want to butcher your name. Oh yeah, of course. I know Africa will rise. From what? Thank you. Yes, you got it right, Peter. He did make a major contribution in concrete ways, not just in theoretical ways, right? No, Ife Sinachi, I don't understand what you mean. No, when I say Booker T. Washington fought for Africans, do you mean the segregation era or Jim Crow pejorative? No, I believe, I'm telling you factually that he fought for African people not to be locked out. So the US government put this specific quote language in an immigration bill, exclude anyone of the Black or African race. And Booker T. Washington is the only person who saw that and was able to stop them from excluding anyone of the Black or African race from the United States from 1915 on. So I'm not saying that he's fighting segregation and Jim Crow, even though, yes, he is, he does do his share, but Washington dies the same year that this happens. So we're still in this period in the United States called the Nadir, one of the most dangerous and violent periods in US history, where Europeans, well, Anglo-Americans are allowed to unleash waves of violence on Black people without any consequence. And it is during this period, 1895 to 1915, that Washington challenges them legislatively on their attempt to deny anyone in the world who are identifiably Black or African from immigrating into the United States. So what I'm saying is very literal. It's not figurative in any way. And I give you this case. So and they give you the case. When I wrote that book, I wrote that book with the intention of it being a teaching book. So the chapter you all have is footnoted, where you could go to the bottom of the page and see where all the sources and the information come from. So this is corroborated by the US congressional record. This is corroborated by Washington's personal papers and his correspondence there. This is not a fictitious case in any way. It is a factual case and well documented. I am the first person historian to document it in a book per se. It is only mentioned at different times lightly in other ways in other places, but this is what primary research does, right? So I am a researcher. I know I skipped over the beginning of this course where I talk about who I am and what I do, but yeah, so that is one of the things that I do, right? I research. So yes, he was a real Pan-Africanist, and he did not have to say it. He did it. And that's one of the things about working for I Love Black People. The idea is that your emphasis is on action, not on ringing declaration. You don't need to say it. You just need to do it, because speaking is only one level of manifestation. Action is the ultimate expression, right? Right? So. Right, of course. The Americans are the peasant class of British society. Yes, present day, the African continent is struggling with neocolonialism, but we are struggling with neocolonialism everywhere we are, even out here in the diaspora. Neocolonialism is a real thing in the sense that we have a lot of people who are Black, look African, and go against the best interests of Black and African people all the time, because what we have settled on is symbolism. So that's why the emphasis in this course is to weigh and measure. So if I gave you this whole case and Washington is not able to defeat the measure, then our hands are empty, right? But this is a concrete case that shows you how he organizes. I give you the details and what it produces. It produces the ability and it sustains the ability of African people to continue to move around the earth freely. And that also includes move in and out of the United States. This measure sought to lock the doors to African and Black people forever. And it was primarily around, we will not let any more African or Black people come into the United States and benefit from whatever they're coming to get from the United States. But Washington is saying, oh no, I'm here. You know, I have a legacy, okay, in the sense that I'm a descendant of these very African people that you seek to lock out. And yes, we have never, well, I'm not even gonna go deep over there because we're online. But the point is that he's saying you won't lock them out. And I'm not just going to say that, I'm going to do something about it. Okay. And very boldly, he does. Okay. Many of people oppose this measure, but he is the person who has the level of power to oppose it and defeat it. The others did not. And I won't call their names because it'll sound like a thing. But, there are other people who, in theory, don't agree with this piece of racist legislation. However, they have no mechanisms or tools to defeat it. Okay. Sure, we can link up with other groups, but we have to, I think one of the things when we get together, we're always very confused about what we're doing. If our objective is to come together, we need to be very clear about the ultimate goal. And the goal is always to what is the, in terms, this very thing is in the definition of Pan-Africanism, is to address our condition of exploitation and oppression. And that manifests multiple areas of life. But we come together and we get sidetracked about a lot of different things. Okay. And we don't stay on task with what we came to do and executing that. Right. So we get caught up with differences and all of that kind of stuff, as opposed to staying focused, Right. Right. And this is the one case that it was a gift that keeps on giving, because I could give you a long list of people who would come from all over the African world into the United States and are direct beneficiaries of the defeat of this particular piece of legislation by Washington. So here, thank you all. Okay, we have other stuff that we're going to be covering next week. And when people say to you, but Pan-Africanism is not real, Pan-Africanism is abstract. No, it's not. This is a specific case, and it is an example of Pan-Africanism, which produced something for us. Okay, it changed the conditions of many people's lives in the sense that it gave them an opportunity to come to the United States. And yes, when Black and African people come to the United States, they come into already constituted and established Black communities, because you can't integrate. America's not integrated on a residential level. Most of the United States is still segregated. Our residential communities are still segregated. There's only small pockets where Black people and white people live together. That's not the reality. We work together, but we generally don't live together. And so when people immigrate to the United States, they come into already constituted and existing Black communities. Okay. And Washington is the person who made that possible in no abstract way, in a very literal sense. Okay. But Pan-Africanism can do that. Absolutely. But doesn't your ability to move around and produce capital, allow you what Pan-Africanism affords, meaning that what being locked out of the United States means is that those people who could come and work and did come and work at one time on the Panama Canal could not come and work anymore. That's economic. That's an economic statement, right? Certainly, most are coming as the working classes, okay? Now, if the people who are here don't defend the people who are outside and say, yes, they can come and benefit themselves economically. This is what I mean by we get caught up with our ethnic difference and stuff like that. Many people, depending on where they are, they may say, no, we don't want other Black people or other African people coming here and taking our jobs, right? In this instance, Washington is not worried about that. Today, you can find African Americans who will say, African immigrants, African and Black people from the Caribbean, they're coming and taking our jobs, and they acquiesce to white people, right? Well, this is a lesson for them. Washington did not have that same posture. So it is a model for us. So no, Pan-Africanism is not about coming to the United States. So if you think that you go back and listen to the rest of this lecture, you got that part wrong. That's not what the point is. If I want to go to anywhere in the world where there is an African population, and someone has proposed that Africans from the United States or Africans from the Western Hemisphere, so to speak, in the diaspora cannot come to their country, I expect you to speak up for me. Okay. And yes, that's a possibility. Okay. We have issues like that. If any of the Western nations, France, Britain, any of them enact an African exclusion policy or measure, I expect the Africans in that place to stand up for all of us and say, you will not enact racist policies to lock us out and put us into the same category. Being Black is equated with being criminal and undesirable. Absolutely. To oppose something like that and actually produce a defeat is Pan-Africanist. Make no mistake about it, because Washington was in the United States. He didn't have to defend anybody outside of the United States. He was fine, right? He could just worry about Black people in the United States and still be very busy, right? But he's not. He's concerned about African and Black people globally enough to challenge the US government, who he had on many occasions been advisors to. And in this instance, he says, absolutely not. So let me just say something. You should, so one, I don't like full out give you a expose or, a summary of my book, but the book that this comes from, this case, is called Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And it talks about producing sustainable models. One of the things for African people, one of the things that was perfected at Tuskegee was a sustainable model, and then a sustainable community, okay, where we produced everything we consumed, as opposed to producing raw goods and services. And this is one of the things that notably around the world, we're still pigeonholed into, meaning that most African and Black countries are producing raw goods and they have no industrial might. The industries are not there. They send it all out to the Western world. They put it in a box or a can and send it back to you at triple the price and full of salt for you to consume. So That's how we get raped in the economy, right? Because what we produce is devalued, even though we are the inhabitants of the world's most resource-rich places on earth. That being said, I don't know where you are, Thomas Broke, but if you're familiar with my work, the rest of this particular book, or if not, maybe we can work on getting some of the information to you, because there is a very easy way for us to remedy our situation in the world in terms of being financially or economically in power, and that is to benefit from the resources that we have in the places that we inhabit. And it also means that we can get independence through owning the industries. That is a sustainable model. And that was the model that was going on at Tuskegee that Washington seeks to export to the continent of Africa. So that's really what that book that I wrote was actually about. So that's one road, that's one, tidbit on how we can move towards that. But let's be very honest. On the African continent, what we have is the issue of neocolonialism. African leadership, people who are making decisions about industry in Africa, who are still in bed with the West and willing to essentially rob the masses of benefiting from the resources that are there and allowing European nations to benefit most from those same resources. If Africa wants to liberate itself economically, I'm just going to give you the simple answer, and it actually is something Washington is involved. The idea and concept is independence through industry. And on the African continent, that would manifest and produce independence, economic independence, very swiftly. But show me the African leadership that is willing to do that. Cut Europeans out the deal. Cut them out the deal. Right? That means people are going to die and a whole bunch of other things are going to happen, because that hasn't happened yet. Those who try, they died. We'll be talking about one of them. And I'm not saying that it can't be done. We've got to socialize that type of thinking, that the independence is going to come through industry and that Africans will benefit first and foremost before anybody else. The Congo is already doing it. They are saying that you cannot mine. They're not going to allow foreign nationals to mine. And that's a big major step, because as you'll see in our next session, we moved to the Congo. And the first example of someone trying to do exactly what I'm talking about is Patrice Lumumba. The Congo has two of the world's most important resources for the modern military and armory and armament, and that's cobalt and coltan. He attempts to align himself with the Eastern Bloc in the United States. Okay. Well, is it a dream? I mean, it's a dream if we don't enact it. We can make it a reality. We can make it a reality. I'm not into dreaming, but yes. I don't know that it's a dream. I think that if we don't have an ideal, then we don't have a path, right? So we should have things that are aspirational that we know are going to contribute to our liberation, right? And at some point or another, we will produce the kind of people or the persons who will carry that out, right? All of this starts with ideological development too, though, okay? People don't, well, I'll leave it there, right? So if nobody's thinking that way, then almost no one is going to act that way, right? And so, yeah, we can produce people who understand that before they go do something in the West, they better use their talents at home, focusing on how what they produce is going to benefit the people and having industry. One of the biggest issues in Africa and anywhere is that whether or not they have industry. for the natural resources that they actually produce. But I'm well over time. It's 12:10. I'm like 40. I'm over. I'm like 25 minutes over. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you all for contributing your time. I am because we are. I love the comments. Okay. Well, South Africa is a particular case. You know, there's, I could give my opinion about a lot of things in South Africa, but yeah. So I get you. Thank you for that information. You know, South Africa in particular needs the kind of leadership that is going to correct historical wrongs without impunity. And that takes courage. Okay. Things are happening in South Africa that are good and in the favor of African people to a certain extent, but it's not enough, not for the size of the population that felt the brunt of apartheid and suffered under it, right? So, yeah. But I appreciate your question, Thomas. Okay. So if you produce, I don't know, whatever is growing under your feet, you also need to have the industry in that country, the factory that, you know, and that packages it and processes it for the masses to consume, right? You know, over and again, the idea is to consume to produce what you consume. I'm not sure. Okay, thank you very much. But anyway, so everyone stay safe. And I will see you next week. Like I said, we'll be watching a film that I will put in the group. It's called Cuba, an African Odyssey. Not an emphasis on Cuba, but more an emphasis on the contributions that Cuba makes to African liberation in various ways. And it sort of chronicles the connected story of African liberation. Okay, so I am because we are, and have a good day. Okay, peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright. And thank you everyone that stayed on the call until the end. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you on the next call. I am because we are.